Namaste and very good afternoon. It's me, Madhav Devgoda, MPhil second semester, a student of Nepal Open University. And this very presentation is a partial assessment of translation studies. And the topics of my presentation is on linguistic aspect of translation, written by Roman Jakobson. Let me begin from his introduction. Roman Jakobson, one of the prominent Russian linguistic and formalist. He was also considered one of the founder of the Prague Linguistic Circle and an influential intellectual of the 20th century, with its remarkable contribution in the field of linguistic. In the given essay on the linguistic aspect of translation, written in 1959, talks about the different types of translation and some aspect of translation such as linguistic aspect, cultural aspect, and creative aspect of translation. On linguistic aspect of translation, Roman Jakobson mainly talks about how to derive or generate the meaning. The meaning of the word is inherently a linguistic phenomena, and it is associated totally with the linguistic and semiotic fact. Its argument is the meaning lies with the signifier, with the linguistic sign, linguistic word, and linguistic verbal sign, not in the signified, the object it referred to. In his essay on linguistic aspect of translation, Roman Jakobson, he refuses the arguments of Bertrand Russell, or he disproves its arguments that one must know a word's reference, the things in itself, in order to know its meaning. Its argument is we have a capacity to understand words even without their physical entity, physical existence, or non-linguistic words. To understand a word, one must have familiar or acquaintance with the meaning assigned or given in the lexical code of one's own language. Those words which have only a linguistic sign must be understood with their contextual meaning. For instance, the words, grammatical words like merely and because do not have their physical existence, but we can understand such type of words in a particular context. In the similar way, the strange words like heaven, hell, nectar, and others can be understood by the help of other diverse languages. So, Jakobson's claim is that people do have the ability to know and understand the word without their physical entity or physical existence. Thus, the words gets its meaning through the linguistic verbal sign associated with it. When the verbal code is excluded, the meaning of the word cannot be found. For instance, the meaning of cat lies in rat. Without the linguistic word rat, we cannot understand that very word. To learn a new word, other verbal sign must be used to describe it. As I already discussed that To understand the words like heaven and hell, other words, other diverse word that helps to understand such new words. The meaning of any linguistic sign is its translation into some further alternative sign. For example, one can understand the word cheese unless he or she has an acquaintance with the meaning assigned or given to this word. There is no term without signum. Here, the cheese, the word we can understand through the cultural context, through cultural meaning. The argument is the language and culture, they are inseparable, and we can understand the meaning of certain word in terms of cultural context. And it is the linguistic verbal sign that gives the meaning to an object, that is translation. Roman Jakobson, he has distinguished mainly three different types of translation. Firstly, intralingual translation, which is considered as the rewording. Secondly, interlingual translation, that is also known as the translation proper. And finally, intersemiotic translation. Let me define these three different types of translation one by one. First, intralingual translation. The intralingual translation means the translation that actually takes place within the same language. A verbal sign or verbal word belongs to a particular language is replaced by another words that belongs to the same language. That is to say, intralingual translation is an interpretation of verbal sign by means of other verbal sign within the same language. And rewording means placing the meaning in different words in the same language. And this kind of translation is not considered as the true translation activity. And in intralingual translation, the translator can use the help of synonymous words. Using synonyms and similar verbs sign to describe the original word. As Jakobson believes, one can either use another more or less synonymous word or resort to a circumlocution. That is to say, its argument is two similar words may not give exactly similar meaning. They are different in terms of their sense, though they are similar. For instance, can you describe him? Can you depict him? In this given example, that describe is going to replace by depict, but if you see the meaning closely, then certainly we find there is difference. In the same way, in the next example, Saurabh is celebrate. That means Saurabh is unmarried or bachelor, but being bachelor and celebrate have two different meanings. Similarly, in intralingual translation, the translator provides the different varieties of language. And as I told you already, synonymy is not a complete equivalence, and it is also not considered as a real translation activities. Then let me shift to the next sort of translation, that is known as the interlingual translation, which is known as the translation proper. An interlingual translation We can define it as an interpretation of verbal sign by means of some other language, or it is a translation between two different languages. It is the process of transcending of a linguistic barrier that is between the two different language system. Here from source language and the target language, they are different. In interlingual translation, there is no full equivalence between code units. If you translate the source language into the target language, for instance, if you translate the Nepali text into English text, then in such case we can find the full equivalence in terms of the code units or vocabs. Translation from one language into another replaces the message, substitutes the message. That is, the word-to-word translation is not possible because they shared the two different cultural contexts. For instance, translation of Nepali poem is a pagal as lunatics and Sirisko full as blue mimosa. Finally, intersemiotic translation, as Jakobson described, is an interpretation of verbal sign by means of non-verbal sign system. It is also called transmutation, that is transferring message from verbal to a non-verbal system, from one medium to another medium. Let me give examples. In this kind of category includes all kinds of translation of any particular word, a book, a movie, a video game, to another form of textuality or media platform, which can be a movie translated into a book translated into comics, and a video game translated into TV series, among several other possibilities, and their respective vice versa. In this type of translation, the translation, instead of focusing on word-to-word translation, stress is given on the overall message, overall meaning, the overall sense that needs to be conveyed. Thus, the translator, instead of paying attention to the verbal sign, he or she concentrates more on the information that is to be delivered. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.